Hello. Here we are for day number 7 of Love Bites. So today is Don't Ice Queen Him Out, which I'll just make sure you understand the meaning of before we really get going today. And Love Bites are 8 days of bites of information just for you to delve, to digest, to assimilate, to hopefully resonate, to get something out of that changes where you're at or where you're going this year in 2021, and really works towards consciously creating a relationship that you desire, but more than that, the way that you desire to feel within relationship. That would be my absolute heart's desire, that you really got to feel the way you want to feel in relationship. So hopefully today, hello beautiful, and as I say, hopefully we don't have any stalker horrible people today. You're pouring a wine? I'm back home again. Our staycation is over, but I have a wine. Hello beautiful Bron. Oh gosh, it's a delight to my heart to see these beautiful women that I love on. This day was a bit yuck, wasn't it? I loved that we had this full feminist force and power on the live, and that you were all reporting him, and I blocked him and did all of those things as well. And then I saw that Facebook, one of the beautiful women online, had, yay for one, I know, had reported that he wasn't even blocked. I thought, oh my God. So it's okay for a man to sexually harass you online, hey? So don't ice queen him out. We're going to talk about this today. And if there's any weirdness, then what I'm going to get you to do is DM me, and I will send you a link to a private Zoom so that we can continue to have a private feminist conversation about being feminine, because you get to be both. Feminist and feminine. So if there's any shenanigans, just DM me and I will send you a link, and we will just jump onto a private call. Isn't it empowering to know we have a choice, isn't it? Yeah. And actually part of me yesterday was weird. Yeah, no, he wasn't. Only ice cream if it's a weird stalker. Oh my God, yes. Okay, I actually think this is a fantastic conversation, right? Because I actually had this conversation with my husband afterwards. And I still employ all of the skills that we talk about in Queen School. I still do. So after I got off that and I was like, mad and feeling into all of the rage, and did my post about, this is like not cool. And I've kind of dabbled in sort of stalkery things over the years, including I had one even when I was in college clinic, when I was training to be a naturopath. I have a strange feeling there was one before that too. I've always had a way with men. And I've learnt a lot. So after that happened yesterday, I was like, no, I've learned what to do with my energy. Yes, you need to be able to ice queen. You need to be able to put the heckles out and slice and cut and carve in all of the right and empowered ways. You have to be able to do that, of course. But what we don't want is that becoming the default when what we're wanting to experience is open-heartedness. Because if I had taken that, which was directed in a, I think, meaningful and purposeful way towards a man that I did not want to have anything to do with, and I brought all of that into my intimate relationship, that's when things are going to get hairy. It's when they're going to stop working the way that I want them to work, because I stop feeling the way that I want to feel. If I'm protected and closed up, and my light is not yours to receive, not yours to take, and is not freely given, and I continue that in all of the areas of my life, I end up hurting myself. So when I talk about Ice Queen, what I'm talking about is when what you want is to be opened and swooned and and you know, felt at the heart level in all of the ways, and certainly at the physical one too. And yet you don't feel able to, or you don't know how to, or you're holding on to so much fear and tension that the Ice Queen is what they get in response. Does that kind of make sense? So Ice Queens are generally pretty prickly. Thanks, Nicole. I was just doing it at the start. Thanks for all the femme power yesterday. It was cool. So after that, after I did all of that random whatever, I realized that actually what had happened was I was plugged into vulnerability. So vulnerability, when I talk about it in the feminine, is I want to try and make this digestible for you on a live like this, because I know in Queen School we can go much more nuanced and deep, but let me see if I can string this along and you let me know if you didn't follow. Okay, and I can, or other queens that are on here, if you know you've been in there and you understand what I'm saying, then please feel free to share your own wisdom too. And then I said too many words and lost it out of my head. Let me find it again. Hang on. Vulnerability. That's what I was saying. Okay. So there's a type of vulnerability that comes with being in your feminine that is like, do you remember I talked about surrender in, I don't know, maybe it was day 3 or day 4, as kind of like a spiritual ecstasy, that it's like this cracking open and you're so vulnerable because it's almost like the sacrificed heart, right? It's like I'm open and therefore there's part of me that's at the mercy of you. There's part of me that's so open, I'm like almost sacrificial in that openness, right? There's nothing that's held back. There's nothing that's held on to. There's nothing that's not open and available in this moment. Like it's all here. And when you're all here, the reason I say that it's ecstasy and surrender is because it makes me salivate. It's that delicious mix of both, right? It's divine bliss and pleasure and fulfillment, and like the ringing of a crystal glass through your body where anything and everything is possible in this moment, and at the same time can be so acutely painful that the pain and the pleasure are matched. Or the sense of vulnerability is you're so aware of it that often we will prevent ourselves from feeling that degree of pleasure and ecstasy because we're too shit scared of what it means to be that vulnerable and that open. And so we just kind of put a cap on the amount of pleasure we can feel, because that degree of pleasure comes with that degree of openness, and that's the vulnerability that comes with it. Does that kind of make sense? So there's vulnerability in the feminine that is equally as powerful as it is vulnerable. And I think that's why it's is rare in a lot of ways, right? Because it's kind of like you have to be the courageous warrior, but it's a feminine warrior, so it looks like a warriorship and a courageousness from the heart, which perhaps is greater than the courageousness that comes from the force of doing. And then there's a vulnerability that's not empowering, so I consider that an empowered vulnerability. And then there's a vulnerability that's not. And so after yesterday's live, and I'd kind of moved through my empowerment, and then I realized there was this point in my body that was like hurting a little bit. And I realized it had been plugged into all of those times in my life as a young girl, as a teenager, as a woman, where my light was not mine to do with as I pleased, you know? And there's a vulnerability and a pain that comes with realizing you're not as invincible as you thought you were, and that there's part of the setup of this world that's not orchestrated in your favor. And that pain I could have chosen to harden around, to Ice Queen, to become prickly like a porcupine, to attach the way that I perceive men or the patriarchy or the setup of the world and project that onto my husband, make him part of the whole conspiracy theory. Or I could show up without it needing to rationally make sense because I know I'm fine and empowered and safe. But there's this part of when you feel that just our body remembers, right? Even when our mind forgets, our body remembers. The cellular memory that sits in our body, in our cells, is real. That's why it's never too late to heal, because at any point when the body, and this is why also when you are opening into the feminine, of course, one of the first things you'll meet will be variants of pain, because all those things you've hardened up and locked away start to want to come out. So it's not so much that you've got to learn how to be, but you've got to resensitize yourself, and what's in the way of that sensitization is all of the locked up, tension-filled places that have held on to trauma, to incomplete cycles of too much, too soon, too fast, right? So for me, it was hitting some of those. And I know that I sit upon white Western woman privilege, and yet still I've had those experiences. And still I think the men in this world don't know what that's like. And so I was able to really sit in that with my husband after that live and cry and not have it make sense about the thing right now, but just let it be something is happening in my body and I just need that to be seen, and I need to tell you about the time I was at that bar and I was unsafe, and the way you walk down a street and you learn how to cloak your own light or sexuality, the way that, you know, you can walk past a bar and a guy just thinks he has a right to grab your boob or stick his beer bottle up your skirt. Like he's never experienced, he doesn't know what that's like. So actually having that experience was a beautiful opportunity for me just to open and soften around that. And for him to be able to be with that, with the degree of presence and evocation of his king, protector and hero of me, which usually I'm pretty like self-sufficient, empowered woman in the world. That woman doesn't need a man to look after her, but it's the need of the feminine that makes him rise and evoke. So when I'm able to be with my own neediness without it making sense up here, and being able just to let that light and energy move through my body and have that be fully witnessed and seen and surrendered open, right, for my own healing, and also so that he has an opportunity to meet me in all of the ways that I want to be met. If I don't offer him the opportunity to do that, how can he ever give me what I want if I've never let him in? If I've never offered him the opportunity? So even though it was a bit of a shitstorm, wasn't it? And it wasn't ideal, and it felt icky. I felt slimed. It was a bit gross. But also an opportunity to revisit stuff that was sitting in my body and in my psyche that I just kind of locked away and forgotten about here. But my body remembered the resonance of, and had an opportunity to reprogram and reprint that with a man who is honourable and divine and king-like, and to repattern that in my own body is a gift. It's a gift to me, it's a gift to my feminine, it's a gift to my relationship and to the way that I parent. Because the less we're holding on to and projecting our own stories, the more clean or clear we are to forge our own path and to love without the degree of complexity and murkiness that we might otherwise, you know. And I've spent the last few days icing him out, which I've been unpacking in Honey Club. Oh, sorry, loves, I haven't been in there. I promise I will get back in there. I will. Thank you, ladies. I realised today I was icing him out of my fear he couldn't hold my feelings because I was so scared of my feelings. Oh, huge love to you, because that is enormous self-responsibility, isn't it? As you go, wow, I realise I'm doing this because I'm scared of those feelings. And I'm going to say that it's because of him, but really it's because I am. I love that. It's amazing. I didn't know the words. I couldn't name or explain them. It was so irrational, so I shut down and kept him out until he called me out on it today. Oh, I surrendered. Oh, make me swoon a little bit more. He responded in the exact way we had worked out last round of Queen School. He held it all. Oh my God. Does that make everyone melt? Makes me melt, and because I know the pain and the ecstasy in that, right? I remember how you moved mountains last Queen School, and the fact that that's still able to transform and change, and that we're still going to go back to old patterns. You know, like I always say it's like braces, right? Like we can have braces on to straighten our teeth and make it the perfect smile, but the minute we don't have that brace on or plate in, our teeth want to return to the way that they were. It's kind of what our neurobiology is like. So to be able to this is why it's a practice, right? Because when you're continuously retraining, you're able to continue to up level and expand your relationship rather than it being pass or fail, this one time thing and off we go. Like there's no point, right? Unless it's able to be really beautifully worked out for a really long time, which is what I want you to be able to do too. Life skills. Shireen, what if I have done the work but my husband hasn't kept up? I live in the moment, however, he lives where we were. I am sick of him not looking out for me and not supporting my dream, but for years I've supported his. It feels very one-sided, and I feel our relationship isn't at all in yes anymore from my point of view. Can a relationship come back if there is one side that has no idea our relationship is failing? Yes, is the answer to that, Shireen. And I'm just going to break that down just a little bit. I know that we talk about self-growth a lot and the evolution of self and continuously up-leveling and moving and all of the things. But I want everyone to think of it less as levels, because really there's no levels. No one's better than or less than. No one's more advanced or less advanced. We have consciousness in different forms. So whenever we perceive that we have something that another person doesn't have, or we're somehow better than that person in whatever area of life we happen to be comparing that to, I would ask, as I ask of myself, and if you listen to Nourishing the Mother, then you'll know that's something that we ask of ourselves continuously, is where we're self-righteous and we place ourselves above someone else, we minimize the other. It's pretty hard to love someone when you're up here and they're down there. And the other way too, right? If you have someone up on a pedestal and you put yourself down in a pit and you self-minimize and over-exaggerate them, you can't love from that place. So the world and the co-creation of your higher self and the orchestration of our laws of polarity in which there's a relatively equal balance of support and challenge will continue to create experiences in which you either bring them off of the pedestal and yourself out of the pit so you're free to love, or that you are removed from the pedestal and they are removed from the pit so you're free to love. So you can choose to do that consciously, which I think is less painful, maybe. Or you can choose and have a level of co-creation in that, or you can choose to have that happen to you, in which case it's a lesson with probably the sledgehammer, right? So I think we want to be careful of I'm growing and my partner's not, because that's not how I see consciousness. I think you need two people that are invested in a relationship. But if he genuinely doesn't know, then I think he genuinely doesn't know, in which case that self-righteousness, of which we all say, I'm not having a crack at you, we all do it. I have to pull myself off my own self-righteous pedestal all the time, because it's, I think, part of our natural human condition to want to do that, to separate, right? We're always trying to return to the world of non-duality, yet our humanness is constructed for duality. You know, it's a bit more of a consciousness spin on it, I suppose. So I would ask yourself, if he hasn't grown in personal growth or relationship, whatever you perceive he's stagnant in, where has he grown? Because we're always growing, always. You, again, can do it consciously and potentially move that needle faster and sharper when you co-create with purpose and intent. But regardless, you're always growing and orchestrating and co-creating circumstances in which you grow. So where has his growth existed? Where is his profound love and devotion and support? What area of life is that? Does that area of life support you? Is it on vision and on point? Have you outsourced exactly what you need to outsource in order to be able to be free enough to do the things that you're doing? ambition too, right? Like I used to berate my husband for, I don't know, not living a life with the same vigor of passion and purpose that I do. And then I realized that we're also a whole universe as a relationship, right? Whole universe on the self, whole universe in the relationship, whole universe in family unit, and that's how dynamics go. So if I love my ambition and purpose, which I do, and I'm taking up all of that space, then there's really not a lot left for him. If he wants to, or I want him to take up more ambition and more space, I actually have to let him, because there's that much. So we can choose to split it, or it's going to go one way or the other, depending on what's most meaningful to that life, that soul, and that purpose. And we've had so many conversations, and it was honestly probably only a year or two ago, it really landed for me, and I think probably will for some of you as well, that his life purpose and life mission was to love me well. Really. I'm like, oh, that's not a purpose. Like, where's your, like, I want to change the world and I want to do these things in these ways. But actually, what is of greatest service, purpose, inspiration, love and devotion for him is him loving me in all of the ways so that I can live and be who I want to live and be. He just wants to love me into doing that, and love our family into them having exactly the same opportunities. Like that's his purpose. And how could there be, like, it makes me want to cry. I'm like, oh my gosh, the devotion in that is extraordinary, you know? I think I got off track there. So can a relationship come back? Yes, it can. But we're going to have to work on the assumptions that you have, because if he genuinely doesn't know, then I wonder if that communication needs some up-leveling, and in the process of up-leveling and really breaking that down into super simple terms, whether you actually learn how to communicate in a completely different way that he can resonate with, respond to, and show up for. Because if you're not resonating with a lot of energy, there's really nothing for him to show up for. He's not evoked into that if you're taking up all of the space of the consciousness. Let me catch up. I'm getting tired of feeling like I'm doing all the work and he's not. It's like I'm not with the right dude, although we've been together for 23 years. I wonder if this marriage is over and someone else is better suited, because everything is always on me. Then I ice him out or more, so just feel over it. Yeah, I get it. But the exhaustion is part of the big stop sign of not this way. If you run in your masculine for so long and you feel like you're doing the work for two people, there's a lot of doing there, but the purpose of relationship is to bring you back into a more whole self. And sometimes that's going to be through pain. So, I mean, I know you're in Queen School, I'm pretty sure. So we will be going through that. Thanks a lot to unpack from what you've said. Oh, good. Was driving before, couldn't reply or respond. Oh, honey, everything can change. Julie helped change my relationship dynamics in it with my man, 100%. Queen School helped change 17 years worth of conditioning for me. Oh, Nicole, it's heaven, isn't it? I love that you said that. Helped change 17 years worth of conditioning for me. Yeah, because we condition ourselves and each other, don't we? And it takes a little bit of extra effort, yes, initially. But it should also have an edge of where it feels better and it feels good when you learn a way of being that is not exhausting and depleting, but is rejuvenative and is a, I don't know, energy or time reward exchange that feels good. It's so beautiful it is, isn't it? We will unpack more in depth in Queen School for sure. So let's get back to ice queening. he is always responding to your degree of openness and invitation. Do you remember we talked about he knows whether you're closed up and in boss CEO mode, in which case you're penetrating energy, you're giving, doing, getting, organizing, orchestrating, leading, deciding. Your way is the best way. Your decisions are better. He's such an incompetent fool. You've got to do it for him, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. Do, penetrate, energy of leading. No energy that's going to evoke him, because in that energy, he's going to follow the leader or he's going to fight with the leader. Remember we talked about masculine, meeting masculine energy, or he'll withdraw. And in general, men withdraw too soon, women close too quickly. In general, probably most relationship issues could come back to those 2 points, because it requires our own nervous system stretching to stay for longer before we withdraw, and to stay open for longer before we close. That's emotional intelligence. That's the work that's harder. So when you close down the front of your body, when you close up your energy, when he can't read, feel, or be evoked into what is happening in here, then there's no energy coming out, in which case there's nothing for him or her, whoever's the masculine partner, to read, because there's no transmission. And if there's no transmission, then they're not really being evoked into something. Does that make sense? I wonder. If he can't connect to your heart and your body, he or she, it's not men or women, it's just masculine or feminine. If the masculine partner you are with can't receive and plug into your feminine life force energy, what is there to protect and show up for? It's like protecting a barren desert. Versus, I was just watching the Avengers with my kids, versus you're protecting, the Infinity Stone or something like that. Something so precious you're going to fight and rise up for. But if there's no stone, what are you staying for? Probably you'll outsource where to find it. And we outsource in all the ways. We look for replenishment in other places. Remember from lesson 1, masculine is replenished by feminine energy. So we'll look for it in our activities. Tussling with the feminine as she exists in the world. Fishing, the wilderness, golfing, beer. Anything that has just enough matter, because feminine is energy. Energy makes up matter, right? Not consciousness, matter. So anything that has a form and that makes you feel something is inherently feminine. So if I'm not getting that from my beautiful partner, and there's not this precious holy grail life force, infinity stone for me to show up for, to be evoked into action for, to be the hero for, to receive replenishment, purpose, drive, and motivation for, then I'm probably going to look for a mission elsewhere or replenishment from somewhere else. And so we have masculine partners who slowly withdraw further and further from us because there's less and less life force here. And we talked about this cycle. And the less you trust, the more you close, the less life force there is, the more they disappear into work, into career, into friends, into beer, into hobbies, all of the other places they can receive energy from. Because right now does the invoice they're trying to do for their business have more energy than you right now? Remember my son with the carrots? Was I more life force than those carrots on his plate? Not in that moment. Not until a moment after it, when I changed it. And women get busy with friends and social causes and community causes because they gather. And so we withdraw from each other. So have you closed up and you're icing him out? Like it's the cold shoulder, but it also has like a bit of a, it's like closed, aloof. Ice Queen, you've actually got no idea what's happening below the surface. You don't really trust it. You're like, ooh, I don't know, a bit like this, like that, I don't know. I think that I'm wrong. I just don't know what's wrong with me. Surely you've had friends or teenage girls you've been around, or perhaps parents where this has happened. I feel like I'm wrong. I just don't know what part of me is wrong for you. It seems like a lot of me is wrong for you. I don't really want to be around someone that I'm so disappointing and vexing and wrong for. I don't feel good. That reflection doesn't feel good. And we're always reflecting the self. So I'll go somewhere where I feel good in the presence of the feminine. That could be with my glass of beer. I'll be fishing and tussling in the waves. I could be polishing my beautiful red Ferrari's ass. Doesn't have to be human. So, the more open your heart is, the more open the front of your body is, the more there's a truth and a transparency with energy, emotion, feeling, right? Emotion, energy, emotion, emotion. The more that is clear and has a clarity to it, the more there's a reason to show up for this energy. I'm like, there's something going on here. You want to be energy that they can't ignore. An energy that's causes him to rise, because without energy, there's no reason for the masculine to rise. You got it covered, girlfriend. You're more consciousness, so his consciousness doesn't need to rise here. He'll probably be energy. So, I've got a sentence here, it's what I'm smiling at. If you're not being fully taken, then you haven't shown the part of you that wants to be fully taken. Because if you show that part, if that transmission is crystal clear, that is the response you will get. So yesterday when I was feeling all, vulnerable and plugged into all of the vulnerable feminine feelings that I had, I just wanted to feel protected and cared for and provided for and loved and nourished. So when I'm the energy of the truth of that, that's what comes back to me, and then I feel fully fulfilled. But if I'm not fulfilled in this moment, then I'm not fully surrendered to what is moving through my body, because if I was fully surrendered, then that would be exactly what I'd get back, and then I would be fulfilled. Does that make sense? How does anger play in if that's the root of the Ice Queen too? I don't know that anger is the root. I think fear is. Anger's a fun one though, isn't it? I think, I think anger's probably a lesson all on its own. I mean, that's why I do Temptress, right? Which I know you were part of, Annie. If we're angry, usually what we're most angry at is when, you know how we watched or you listened before to Ange move through a process, was really ice queening him out, closed off to him, probably everything he was doing was irritating her, don't want a bar of you. And then she's like, oh, but I'm hurting, and hang on a minute, I can't work out why am I doing this? It's like I can't get out of it. I can't come back to him. I'm like trapped here, because it's a type of cage. And so she spends some time, which is the self-responsible emotional intelligence part, nutting out what's going on there. And then she goes, I'm really scared that he can't handle me, so therefore I can't show him all of me, so it's easier for me to stay angry and then fuck off, because it's easier to be angry than it is to be hurt. And then she went, but actually, it's not that he can't handle me, it's that I'm scared of what I'm feeling. It feels bigger than me even. So when I'm with myself, he can be with me, because we can't ask our partners to be with what we ourselves are not willing to be with. And if you are not enjoying the current reality that you have, then you've probably got to show up a different way to create a different reality, because our current reality is simply the result of all of our previous thoughts, beliefs, and actions. It's just a manifestation of what you've previously held. So to change a manifestation, you have to change the belief, thoughts, and actions that led to that manifestation or a different one. It's really that. The moment you change something or anything, your reality changes. So I think that anger is a wonderful protective mechanism. I think it is easier, particularly as women, to be angry than it is to be vulnerable and hurt and scared, right? But what is the biggest strength? I don't know that it's always in the brute force, and I think if they're disappointing you, I wonder in what ways you can be with, where you ask yourself, have I showed up impeccably, or am I complicit in this setup? Have I been impeccable with the truth of my body in a way that is crystal clear for him? Because he really doesn't know. Doesn't mean he's always going to choose it, right? But that's different to genuinely not knowing. At least if you know you've been completely impeccable, then you know who you're dealing with, right? But most of the time it's that women don't know how to communicate from here. We communicate from here. And there's so many words and it bamboozles them. We can use words as armory and words as weapons, and they're like, you've spun me around and I'm in a tornado and I'm so discombobulated, I don't even know what's going on right now. And you want me to hold that? I don't know what's going on here. Sammy, I'm fully icing him out. I almost feel completely justified when I do. I am blocking him at every turn. Yeah, oh man. I so get it. I think if we were all in a room here, we'd be going like, amen, I know. We all choose that, right? Because there's part of us that feels safer in closure, because at least that we're not fully open to hurt, because that's the love that we've learnt as kids. At least then I know I can be safe, right? Not necessarily receive the love that I crave, but receive the love that I have learnt I'm worthy of. Not am worthy of, have learnt. And anger is way easier than hurt, sad and vulnerable, all the things for me. But again, just another story, right? Yeah, but also self-compassion, because it's easier to be, a warrior force that feels like they're doing something and they're not going to be hurt than it is to be the surrendered pacifist, right? And yet probably some of the greatest human rights movements have been from pacifists, from the surrender, from the vulnerability, right? Brooke, I have very low energy, but this is what needs to change, as I'm increasingly feeling like I'm missing something from my core. Yeah. Oh, Brooke, I so feel that. I so feel that. This sense of like, I don't know, grey kind of no man's land. I know there's something more and I can't live here anymore, but I don't know what else and I don't know how else, and I get it. I think that's how we're conditioned and trained until we realise that ice queening is just hurting our own heart. We think we're hurting them and therefore protecting us and somehow saving some residual form of love within our own body, but in fact it just hurts our own energy flow, because the moment we dam up the energy, the less we're feeling, the more we're numb, the more we're suppressing and repressing, and it doesn't go away anyway. It just stays in our cells. And yeah, that's definitely us this week. I try to get what I'm feeling across, namely that I'm exhausted from being in my masculine all the time and seemingly fighting him to let me out. And he just gets upset because what I'm saying isn't resonating at all. Yeah. Yes. So this is where we have to just be able to work out the manuals on how to handle you, right? No different to birth, Annie, you're a doula. Think about how you would set up couples for birth. Just do it for yourself, only with emotions. Yeah? And less words. You are a very verbal woman. Bless your cotton socks. But that can be bamboozling for a masculine, right? Who has one tab open. Hang on, I'm just going to blow my nose because I can feel it. God bless Melbourne, but it is the allergy capital of the world. It's you as well, Shireen. Yeah. So put it this way, honey. If you can't say it in 5 words or less, the majority of your communication needs to come from here, not from here. So if you haven't succinctly pulled that down into 5 words or less, then you're not really saying it. And in that 5 words or less, it should be so clear. Like yesterday, right? All I had to say was, I just feel so vulnerable. I just feel so vulnerable, 5 words. And there was my king. Because it happened from here, it didn't happen from here. Haha, if only I knew how to communicate without words. You do know. You do know. You've just got to practice it, and I think it's about the self-process of dialing. You've got to work it out and work it out. This is why we spend so long on the feminine and on understanding the masculine in Queen School, because there's a lot of understanding how the masculine nervous system and brain is wired that then means you're able to meet that and create a bridge between the two. Like that whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing has cause because they're neurology that works completely differently. And when you can understand it, you can create the bridge between. So I think it's more about playing to your strengths and theirs, and being more savvy about communication without this sense of, frustration or lack, because I think it's there. We've just got to work out how to bridge the gap between each other more effectively. Does that kind of make sense? You can do it. You can do it. Think about circle. Think about how I've worked with you and you've like soothed on the words and come into more feeling. Think about that. Same thing. So many light bulb moments when learning about the masculine in Queen School. Seriously, it's so cool. Meals. Me too. I think I'm doing Queen first this time because that's the way my book was set up, and I think it probably makes sense to understand your own way of being before you understand their way of being. But I find the way the masculine works fascinating. And when I understood that too, I was like, that radically changed everything, because it meant I was no longer attaching meaning. I no longer was continuing to communicate in ways that left me more unfulfilled. And instead, I got to be everything I wanted to be, and I just had to work out the small pathways into making that readable, tangible, and stacking his ability to hold while I stacked my ability to reveal. So you don't go from, remember, like this much energy to handle my tornado. You go through revealing as I learn it in my body and unlearn the stories of my childhood, and him for holding feminine energy and unlearn the stories from childhood as I grow my masculine, as I grow my feminine, and you grow together. So kind of makes sense? Yeah. All right, so that is it for today. Don't ice queen him out, because you just hurt you. You stop in that moment what's possible. You stop the flow of energy. You stop your heart being able to fully feel and receive. You jump into your masculine. You stay closed up. The less you trust, the less he holds, the more he withdraws, and the more you're on that vicious cycle. So come up level all those things in Queen School. We begin January 14th. And I will see you in there for 12 transformative relationship weeks, be you in relationship or not, because it's really about up-leveling how you love and communicate so that you evoke the lover that you crave to be met by, whether that is someone you are already in relationship with. And remember, you can only know the amount of a person as can be seen as the amount of ocean that can be seen from the shore. You think you know someone, and then you realise the moment you change, they change, and you don't know them at all. So whether that's to evoke the lover that you want out of the relationship you already have, or you're wanting to learn how I've done this like mistakes thing forever and I want to change who I'm calling in and how I'm showing up and what this looks like to move forward with impeccability, then Queen School is for you too. So we're really just here to be self-responsible and self-compassionate and grow up all of the pieces and places within us that have not had a voice as yet, or in education, and to love our way into something more extraordinary than what we're receiving right now. And I think that's totally possible. So I'll drop the link to Queen School in case you want to find out more. And I will see you tomorrow for our last Love Bite at 4:44. And I really hope you're enjoying them. I'll see you.